Awesome. Hey, everyone. OK. Let me see if the slides work. Oh, there we go. OK. Amazing. Great. So I guess you want to sit down or? Yeah. Appreciate everyone for coming to today's talk. So I'm really pleased to introduce Michael Carter, a Silicon Valley legend and contributor to lots of awesome open source software that people use today. He's the CEO of Playco, which is a billion-dollar company. And about 2 years ago now, he got into Web3. We've been friends since before he got into Web3, and he crossed over. So would love to learn more about it. And with that, do you want to do a self-introduction, Michael?
So I'm actually very excited to be here. I think I've been to Yoyogi Park about 100 times, but never to this stadium. So it's the very first time, despite living in Japan for a little while. And actually, as Richard mentioned, I'm running a company called Playco, which I'll talk more about. Playco is what brought me to Japan. And so thanks to entrepreneurship and gaming and Web3 and just one thing always leads to another. And here I am in Tokyo, living not far from this stadium. So I was pretty excited when I learned I only had to commute roughly like 500 meters to show up and speak. It's the shortest commute to a speaking engagement I've ever had.
Awesome. So I guess to start, could you talk a little bit about how you got into open source and things that you learned there?
Sure. So when I was very young, I was always interested in network games, network technology, MMOs, whatever brought people together online. And growing up as the internet revolution happened, I was really sort of surprised that putting real-time games and applications inside of the web was actually really hard. Like, if you kind of go back to the 90s, if you want to look at a website, you'd have to click on a link, and then the website loads. And if you want to see some update, you click again, and then it loads, right? So it was always like the user does something, and then new information comes back. And so if you want to build something like Twitter or Google Docs or any kind of game, basically it was just impossible. And for me, the web was amazing because it connected people all around the world, but at the same time, it didn't connect them in an immediate, instantaneous, real-time fashion. And so I built all sorts of experiments, and in fact, my work in university, my thesis was on how do you solve this problem. And I realized that actually, in order to solve this problem, it has to be done through technology that is free and available to the whole world. Meaning, if I were to create some new system, some new technology or protocol, and then go get a patent on it, maybe that would seem to make sense as a business, but then none of the browsers, none of the open source folks would be willing to adopt it, of course. And so I moved to Silicon Valley, and instead of joining a company or starting a company, I just volunteered. I just worked on open source software. I contributed my work to the public domain. And it actually went pretty well in retrospect. I worked on dozens, if not more, open source projects, including things like Node.js and kind of the Python ecosystem. But probably the most notable would be HTML5 WebSocket. And so this is a technology I created which allows people in browsers to automatically see updates. So imagine Google Docs if you can't see what other people do, or imagine Twitter if you can't see the latest updates. That was the world before I made WebSocket, and now more than 3.5 billion people use it every month. It's literally like more than half of the online world that uses this actually every day. And so I learned a lot, and I learned that basically the most powerful way to bring innovation and technology to the world is through free kind of open source contributions.
And I guess this insight about having free and open source contributions, how did it affect your gaming startup? And I know that Playco works on a lot of messenger-based games. So what was the insight there, and what was that journey like?
Yeah, so I will say that at the time when I worked on WebSocket, I did feel a little frustrated. And in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have been so impatient, but in order to change the way that the entire internet worked, there's so many stakeholders. So it's not just like the browsers and the server developers, it's all of the like security people, the firewall software people, router software people, the hardware people. Just basically every single component of the internet had to be updated. And at the time, I kind of felt like, hey everyone, like how do we all get on the same page here? And you know, it definitely took a lot more work and was a lot slower than I thought. And never at any point did I think like, oh, how do you make this a business? But I realized later that actually if you can create some sort of economic alignment, then it's a lot easier to kind of push things through. And you know, eventually, by the way, WebSocket got there. It just probably took 10 years longer. You know, even Ethereum now is built using WebSocket, all the real-time updates of the validators, or you can subscribe you know, to smart contracts all through WebSocket. But then I said, okay, well, I want to go build a business, and you know, kind of, you know, I think that like having the taste of building technology that then went to billions of people, you know, I just want to do it again, except I wanted to do it faster. And so, you know, Playco is the culmination of, you know, that interest. And I teamed up with some fantastic co-founders and friends, you know, Teddy and Take, who's here from Japan, and Justin, who previously founded Zynga. And we said, look, we want to build games that connect the entire world. Like the goal was, like WebSocket, it's how do we get the entire world, like billions of people to all play the same game at the same time? That's the goal. And on that path, you know, we've actually made significant progress. Like we've actually been able to get, you know, more than 1 billion people to play our game. And we've been able to attract outside funding, you know, to the tune of $250 million to see this mission through. But this was kind of the second big learning. You know, the first was sort of like, how do you go and build huge scale? It sort of, you know, taught me you want to build things where the whole world can get on board. But the second part was, you know, we got the whole world on board, and actually we were never able to create a business model out of it. You know, we still are working on it, and the reason is that intermediaries, you know, notably Apple, got in the way and said, whoa, you know, this sort of like direct web distribution threatens the App Store. And so they just shut off all our payment rails. And so it's sort of a rude awakening that, you know, we raise the money, we build the team, we get the most talented people on earth, we build the best products, we go out, we get 1 billion people to use our products, except we're basically just rugged, where like the payment rails get pulled out from under us. And you know, it's been a frustrating experience, despite having lots of success, to have that be the blocker.
So I guess on the, you know, payment side, and also with your experience in the Web 2 games, right? Like, what do you think is the opportunity for developers with messengers and Web 3 onboarding and Web 3 payment rails?
Yeah, so fundamentally, messengers are a fantastic way to reach the, you know, like all people. Everyone's on a messenger. You know, you have Line Messenger or iMessage or Facebook or WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal or something, right? Probably a lot of those, maybe all of those. And so when we looked at kind of the Web3 space, it was like, okay, when we try to do this through kind of traditional tech, you know, Apple blocked everything, but looking at the messengers through a new light to say like which are the most open and which kind of embrace Web3 the most, it was very clear that Telegram is a very open platform. You can get started super easily. You just message a bot and suddenly you have your own developer account. There's open APIs, and importantly, there's the ability to have connected wallets from day one. So no longer do you have to route all of your financial transactions through the App Store. And so it was sort of the opposite problem, where with where we got with Playco, we were able to get to billions of people right away, you know, without any ability to do payments. Whereas with Web3, on, you know, the very first user you get, you have the ability to transact. You have a direct ability to, you know, have an economic relationship. Now the question is, well, how do you scale that? How do you take Web3 and how do you onboard the same billion people, but like into Web3? And you know, that's where I think it's really, really exciting, because that opportunity exists. And we've actually just launched our first, you know, sort of game, our first attempt in Web3, called Gems. And it's only been out for 60 days. And already we have 11 million players, almost 1 million followers on Twitter. And this is without any marketing. We've never spent a dollar, nothing on marketing. This is all viral, all word of mouth. And what's so crazy is that like all of these people we're free to transact with. We're free to have them connect their wallets and do whatever we want.
And I guess like, it's pretty awesome that you got 11 million users in 60 days. And what are like the key learnings from GEMS, and what do you think makes GEMS very unique and interesting?
So this is an interesting moment. And if you zoom out and look at kind of the broader sort of ecosystem briefly, I think the industry has sort of settled on points as a sort of a way to onboard people into crypto without having to connect their wallet. Meaning you do some stuff to earn points, and then you later connect your wallet, and then you're part of an airdrop maybe or whatever else. And that's kind of an industry trend that's been happening, and that's interesting, and it's a less kind of frictionful way to like get people involved. It's very easy. I think the next step now, and GEMS has a point system. People are earning points. But I think what's really interesting now with something like Telegram is the ability to then start creating wallets for people in a non-custodial manner, where you can have the same lack of friction, where people just sign up, they tap one button, they're playing the game instantly, they're playing with their friends, they're playing with strangers, with whoever, and they already have a wallet, and they're already able to start doing Web3 transactions without even realizing it. And I think that actually the scale that's possible here, I think it's very possible to create a Web3 game where all of the users are doing Web3 transactions. They don't have to go through the complicated job of that most of us went through over the last 10 years to create a wallet, and it's been getting easier and easier. But now I think you can do it instantly, and I think we can have 1 billion people on chain in one single game. And I think that scale has never been possible before. And so GEMS is an effort to basically move that on-chain Web3 transaction kind of moment earlier and earlier in the funnel, to be able to do it very, very soon after people start playing a game. And so people learn how to play the game and then are very quickly introduced to on-chain behaviors like NFTs or other game mechanics, such that they understand them and they believe in them, and it's all done in a distributed way.
And I guess since GEM was started last year, AI has really taken off. And I know both you and Justin are huge into AI. So what do you think are the sort of features in AI that's going to be put into these GEMS games? And I guess how have you guys used it so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think what's so exciting about Web3 in general is kind of this idea of peer-to-peer relationships, of distributed sort of onboarding engagement. And part of that, I think, if you look at it from a game perspective, user-generated content is sort of the game analogy to that. If you look at kind of years and years and years of people modding games and creating their own versions, and creating anything from old school StarCraft map mods all the way up to looking at anything from sort of Fortnite to Roblox, UGC is really, really interesting. And I think part of the problem though is that UGC is it's sort of hit or miss. It's things look wildly different. They might look polished and amazing, and then might just look really, really terrible. Sometimes the fact that it looks terrible is kind of the point. But with AI, you're actually giving people the tools to create peer-to-peer user-generated content that looks and feels really cool. Where now, for the first time, what you need is creativity. You don't necessarily need to know how to draw a perfect circle yourself or be a great artist. You just have to have a vision. And so GEMS is fully embracing that, allowing anyone to kind of create amazing content and share it with other people and have that turn into on-chain transactions. And I think the reason why this is a really exciting, important time is that you have the convergence of AI for peer-to-peer user-generated content, and then you have messengers that are open for distributing that content to the entire world, and then you have Web3 in order to create the economy and the ecosystem to make it all work. So we're really excited about that.
That's really awesome. Any closing thoughts before we jump off into the ramen bowl?
Oh no. Yeah, no, now I'm just worried. So closing thoughts. I mean, I would just say this. I really believe that it's important to set out to do things that are at the scale of the entire world. And you should say, okay, if we're successful, how can this impact the life of everyone on Earth? And that needs to be the starting goal, because if you start there, you might not get there. You might end up with merely millions of people, but you might get there, and it might change the whole world. And I think that needs to be the goal. The only thing I'd say is this. I'm a little worried in the Ethereum community because the scale I'm talking about, surely we can't do that on mainnet. It's impossible. And so we're looking at the layer 2s. And yeah, the layer 2s have less gas fees, so maybe we could do it there. But in terms of their peak throughput, it's like double or triple mainnet. I mean, it's not. We're talking about like tens or 100 transactions a second. For what we want to do, we need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. So the last thing I'd say is, if Ethereum wants to be a part of this trend, we need to see scale, and only then will Ethereum be sort of in this cycle and the next.
And there you have it. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
ありがとうございました。
Hey, give a round of applause for
ありが
Michael
とう
and
ございます
Richard. Yeah. All right. Oh, hit him with the
あ
dozo.
本当にすごい。はい。
Oh,
はい
double play.
はい
Be careful.
すごい。
Oh. I thought for a second Michael was going to kick Richard in the head.
蹴ったかと思ったけど。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。